right, here we go. Friday again. Hope you can join us. I will be looking at the chat in. Uh-oh, now I hear myself at least. So I will look at the chat in YouTube. So please add questions, comments, stuff like that there. And I hope you can hear me. I'm trying a little bit of a different mix setup, so I hope that won't be a problem. This way I won't have the mic kind of like in front of the screen or just above my keyboard, so I can see things a little bit better. So normal week. I think it has been a great week for me, at least, having both activities on both campuses and online as well. So I think this has been an excellent week for the course. I hope you agree. And well, today is the final day for the first assignment. Everyone that I have spoken with seemed to have been on track there, and well, we had kind of a soft start in the course, I guess. So there has been plenty of time for you to massage your domain models, and I hope this will be a really nice submission. And what will happen is after you have submitted, I will start taking a look at these submissions, and I hope to finish this quite quickly, but as always it depends. But my hope is to do this at least during next week. And what will happen is that I will present or you will be presented a solution, my solution for this assignment, and you can compare this with your own solution. And if I feel that you have not really grasped, no pun intended, the domain modeling skills, then I will ask you to do a small report covering the differences between your model and my model, and describing your mistakes and what you had misunderstood from domain modeling. So that will be the complementary task if that is issued. So basically I hope this will be quite short and brief, so we can focus on the second assignment. Well, as I said in the course introductions, this assignment is maybe the most laborsome assignment for the course. It has a lot of programming in it, and well, things need to work, and that's always takes time. From a design standpoint, it's basic object-oriented design stuff. Think about the architecture and, well, do a simple but nice solution. That is always the best. All right, so if we take a look at the second assignment, maybe we should take a look at the plan first. So let's take a look at the plan. So week 38 has passed. The final grasp lecture has actually been released. I forgot to add it here, so let's do that. Grasp 3, and these grasp patterns are, well, the foundations for the second assignment, together with the model view controller architectural pattern. So what is left from a theoretical standpoint in the course is basically some Gang of 4 patterns that you will probably recognize some of. It's like strategy and composite and things like that. And also the 5th lecture that will be released this week, and that is more about architectural patterns, layers, and components, actually. So it's a little bit of an extra thing. So that's nothing you will use for the assignments, but things that are good to know about, especially for the upcoming exam. So next week, focus on the assignment. That's the bulk of the work. As usual, I will be on campus on Tuesday in Kalmar and on Thursday in Växjö. So if you are a campus student, you will have the opportunity to see me then. Otherwise, you can always contact me on Slack to set up tutoring or sessions about a topic that you would like to discuss more. And we actually had such a discussion regarding the observer pattern, and it was really nice, I think. Maybe we should even set up some more time for the next little session, because I needed to rush to the tutoring for the campus students. But yeah, you live and you learn, I guess. So feel free to suggest topics and a time, and we will just do something online if you want to. Otherwise, you can always contact me and book tutoring sessions for your group or larger things like that. All right, second assignment, that's the focus for next week, I guess. As said, I will do the release of the fifth lecture about layers and components. Do you suggest to watch all the grasp lectures before we start the assignment 2, or is it a good idea to start the assignment simultaneously? I think you can think maybe the most important things are kind of like the information expert, creator, and controller. So at least the first grasp thing, maybe the first 2 grasp lectures are the most important. The third one talks a little bit more about these evaluatory patterns like low coupling, high cohesion. So you can try to think about different design options and think about cohesion and think about coupling, and make better judgment if you have several design choices to do. But I think you can get by just thinking carefully about the information expert and creator and controller in basically the assignment. And especially if you know about the model view controller pattern also. That I think is the foundation. Yeah. But yes, I would definitely start the assignment, at least start so get the assignment working. There's a small example code in it already, so if you get that working, everything builds and compiles and things like that, then you're at least good to go. We have had some issues with version incompatibilities between Gradle and different versions of JDK, and it turns out the version that we use for the assignment that was shipped to you, it's oldish, so it does not work with newer versions of JDK, and JDK 17 does not work at all with Gradle, so that was a little bit of a surprise to me at least. But yeah, you should be able to upgrade the Gradle installation without problems, so you can use a newer version of JDK if you want to, or there are some instructions in the Slack channel for managing different versions of JDK also. But that's always things kind of like to get going as fast as possible, and as soon as you can get things up and running, the better, I guess. But basically you have well, a little more than 2 weeks to complete the second assignment, so I think it's a pretty good amount of time anyway. And as usual, the deadline, the 11th, is for the passing grade, and you can opt to work for the higher grades. Odd that wasn't there. Is it there? Yeah, so assignment 2, higher grade, is towards the end of the course, the 29th. So yes, all right. regarding assignment 2, the major questions I've got is probably related to this part, requirement number 9. Prepare the design for persistence. That is, add a persistence interface. Implement a hard-coded loading of some members with boats. That is, create some hard-coded data. So you don't need to prepare, or you don't need to implement anything regarding loading and saving to files or databases or something like that. But you should prepare the design for this type of persistence. The suggestion is that you add an interface to handle persistence stuff, and you can use that to fake load a bunch of data, so that your application is populated with some data to work with when you are testing it, basically. It's cumbersome to kind of like add 5 members and then start testing it. It will take forever, especially for me when I'm running these later. So prepare and add some hard-coded data. So you basically create some objects and add them to your system, so that there is some data in it when we start it. And this is nothing that needs to be loaded or saved to disk. So prepare for that. And then if you opt to go for the higher grade, then you need to try to use your design that you did for the 2nd grade and implement some loading and saving for real, so to speak. So some real persistence. For example, saving it as a text file, saving in XML or JSON or something like that, or to a database. And this is this requirement. And for the 4th grade, you should add some flexibility so that we can have different ways of loading and saving. For example, if you opt for XML for the 3rd grade, maybe you do a database save for the 4th grade. Is it okay to implement directly even though it's a grade 3 requirement? I would say stay away from it. It has a tendency to lead you a little bit astray when it comes to the actual design of the application. And it's also a good exercise to try to design something, and then when you do the higher grade, you realize, oh, that design didn't work so well. So I would not do that. I probably will not fail you if you do it, but it's you take a risk, so to speak. All right, that's probably the main question, and it can be a little bit confusing. So create a Java interface for loading and saving. The load function or method, you implement that in a hard-coded way, and then we can have some data in your system just for testing purposes. Otherwise, I haven't really got any very specific questions yet, at least. I think one of the more trickier aspects of the model view controller pattern in general is to find a, well, most people can understand, right? The model part, that's easy to understand more or less what that is. And you also have kind of like the user interface part. It's relatively easy to understand what that is also. But then we have what's the difference between the view and the controller. That's not that easy to find. And in this course, we kind of like define the controller as it should execute the user scenarios, and it should ask the view to display some information, collect some input. Then the controller should interpret that input and react to it, go into a sub-menu or whatnot, ask the model for some more data, change some data in the model, and things like that. So the controller is kind of like the conductor. It directs the flow of the events in the application. and the view is often pretty dumb. It has very little intelligence or state in it, so it's often this more or less a little bit of a functional interface where you have kind of like these functions that do something but not really that much more. That's often the case. So try to find a good balance, and the rule of thumb is to try to have a reasonable amount of code in both of these modules in the architecture, so that you don't get a lot of code in the view and really nothing in the controllers, or vice versa. So, but that is probably the trickier part, I think, about model view controller. Another question that I actually stressed a little bit more when I was on campus in Växjö was let's see, we're having so this part. So for the it should be an object-oriented design and implementation, and you should avoid these hidden dependencies, the magic constants in different parts of the code. So if you have constants, hard-coded constants in your code, you should always be a little bit wary. Does this number or character or string, must it match some other part of the code for things to work? And then you have kind of like a dependency between these two parts, and your application, if you change just in one place and forget to change in the other place, the application will not work anymore. Typical example, I think I even stressed this in the dice game and or in no, probably not in the dice game, in the blackjack game, is that you often have a menu that is printed in the view, and then you collect some input, and this input is just kind of like the raw data from the keyboard, a character or something like that. And then you have a switch or if statements in the controller. So if you press Q, yeah, then you should quit. And you have the hard-coded constant Q in the controller, and you have the hard-coded string, the menu string that contains the Q in the view. So if you want to change the character, then you need to change in both of these two places. And that's always risky, to have these kind of dependencies that are not explicit, so the compiler will not help you there. So that should be avoided, things like that. Yeah, otherwise I think it's pretty clear. As I said, you can always try to find me on Slack if you have any questions, and you can also use the main channels, of course. And I would probably ask you to try to use the main channels if you have general questions about the assignment, or what does this requirement mean, how should we interpret this and that, because chances are that someone else is also thinking about this and can learn from my reply, or I have replied them in some session and they can supply a reply, so we can get smarter together instead of me answering 1000 direct messages. So please use the channels as much as possible. We also have the exercise still. There is exercises to try to use model view controller in this part, and maybe convert your recipe application, or think about a little bit of your recipe applications that you have maybe have done already, and convert that to model view controller. And that could be a really good exercise, and well, as it's an exercise, it's easier to discuss openly in the channels, I guess. All right. I think basically that's it regarding the information. Any questions in YouTube? Oh, I'm really elongated. Why can't I change this? Oh well. OBS has been behaving oddly lately, so maybe it's time for an upgrade. All right, does not seem to be any questions in the chat so far, but feel free to use Slack and have a great weekend and see you next week. Bye bye.